Right, so in the last lesson we set up the connection with Supabase, but we didn't have the opportunity to actually test exactly if it worked. So to test it out, we are actually going to create our first CRUD operations. This may sound as a technical term, CRUD, but this is actually very, very simple. CRUD refers to the four main operations that you can perform with a database. Let me show you more precisely what I mean by that. So if we take the example of hospitals, which is for now the only table that we have, like the only model we are playing around for now, there are various actions that we will want to do. We want to be able to create a hospital. So creating a hospital will be done via what we call a post API endpoint. So this is like a convention that is used with REST APIs, and post means that an action is going to perform on someone else's servers. So in our case, what's going to happen is that following this post API call, a new record inside the hospitals table is going to be created inside the Supabase project. So that's the first action that we want to do. The second one is read. So read is even simpler. It's actually fetching data, reading data from a specific table. So there are actually two main actions, sub-actions related to read action, which are getting all the hospitals, so fetching all hospitals. So the API endpoint will look like this, and you can also fetch a specific hospital with a specific ID. Okay, and this is the second API endpoint that we can see here. And then there are two other actions that are useful. There's the update action. So basically, on an existing record inside Supabase, how can we modify, for instance, the location? So this is the update action that is performed via the put /API/hospital/ID API endpoints. And then there's this delete action that you can perform to obviously delete a record from the database. So as you can see, for each four types of action, there's a specific convention that is used, which are respectively post, get, put, and delete. And with those four main actions, you'll see that you'll be able to build up 99% of all the business logic that you will want to implement inside your app. So to implement those actions inside our app, well, the first thing is that we need a table. So this table, we already have that. And then we are going to now prompt Cloud Code to build up those API endpoint for us. So I have a ready-to-use prompt that you can directly access here. And the nice thing is that, as for the connection with the Supabase table, you can personalize your prompt. So here for the various Supabase credentials, no need to update anything specific, because the app, those Cloud Code will basically know about those secrets, because we've already implemented those in the last lesson. However, what we can do is that we can update the specific table that we are going to operate on. So here in the wake of this example, I have a car table, but we need here to actually specify that it's the hospitals table that we are referring to. And as you can see here, inside the prompt that you can directly use, we actually describe what we want for the various operations that are the standard operations for CRUD, for operations with a Supabase table. So let's copy the content, and as usual, let's actually paste it inside Cloud to perform the implementation. All right, so the code has been implemented. As we can see here, we have several API endpoints corresponding to those, basic CRUD actions we referred to that were added here. Something that I didn't mention also is that I'm using Next.js in the wake of this app. So this is a popular framework for building full stack application. And one specificity of this framework is that all the API endpoints are listed under the API generic folder. So as you can see here, we have both like, we have logic, the logic behind those, standard API endpoints are both nested within that root.ts file and that root.ts file that is under the ID folder here. But yeah, that was just for the sake of your cultural knowledge about Next.js. Now let's just test them out. Let's test out those API endpoints. So maybe the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to check the get. We're going to list basically the hospitals here. So my advice for testing out API endpoint is to use a client for dedicated to testing API endpoints. For this, I do use Postman, which is a very famous product that enables to just play around with API endpoints, etc., etc. So I have the desktop app here ready to be used and to be tested, and we are going to start fetching the data. So let's take the example of this one. So okay, we are going to try to get the list of hospitals. Okay, and here we have a 404 error. This is actually because the server is running on port 3001 instead of 3000, contrary to what Cloud Code thought. And let's do that. And as we can see, the request was successful, but we don't have any data, while we should have at one record being displayed. Here's what's happening. By default, Supabase is enabling RLS policies. So basically, these are policies, secure policies that enable to verify that data from specific tables are accessible for users that answer to very specific rules. This is not something that we're going to tackle in the wake of a series. This will be tackled in the wake of a dedicated theory about security. But yeah, just so you know, when you want to test out the connection with Supabase via testing out specific CRUD API endpoints, starts by disabling row-level security, and then come back to the row-level security logic by implementing the according policies. But again, that's not something that we'll tackle in the wake of this lesson. So let's test out again. And as we can see here, we do have data that is fetched here. Another thing that we can do is actually create one. So to create a hospital, as we can see, we have an example that is provided here. So let's just create one. So what you can do inside Postman is you can actually copy what we call the curl command that is directly given by Cloud Code. And what you can do is you can hit the import button here and paste the curl command directly. That way, this is going to import directly the exact content of the API endpoint. As you know, we need to change the port here because Cloud Code didn't understand the right port. And we are going to test creating a new hospital. So it seems to have been successful. So let's test out what's happening here. And as we can see here, we do have a new record that is added here. So yeah, we could test obviously the other API endpoint, but I think this will suffice in the wake of this lesson. Maybe one last thing that we're going to do is that we are actually going to ask Cloud Code to fill out the table with the mocked data that is actually displayed here. And by mocked data, I mean those 5 hospitals that were displayed here. So that's what we are actually going to do. That's what we call seeding the database, seeding the table of a database. To seed means in the wake of a database table means adding some samples inside the table so that we can already start playing around with some data located inside a specific table. So we're going to say now that the API endpoints work properly, can you seed the hospitals table with the list of hospitals that are currently listed as mocked data inside the current front end. Okay, and what's it's going to come up with is actually I think it's going to come up with a script and a file, specific file that is going to run and perform several posts API endpoint to create those hospitals data. Okay, so the file seems to be ready. So now Cloud Code is asking me to run the seed script. So that's what we are going to do. It seems there are some errors. So it's obviously going to adapt the approach. All right, so it has come up with a fix. So let's test out again. All right, so it seems that the seeding was successful. So let's just check out if that was the case. And this is indeed the case here. You can see that the 5 additional records have been added. By the way, we can see that they have created a duplicate values here. So I think we can delete actually the one that was created here as a duplicate. So the City General Hospital, we're going to delete it. And we are also going to delete the test one that we just performed. Okay, so that way we make sure that we have the 5 sample data that are currently being displayed inside the front end. All right, so that's a very important step. That means that now we have our app that is connected to that is properly connected to our Supabase tables. So now we're going to improve our app by adding some other tables and making sure that those tables can interact with each other, and obviously making sure that the front-end logic that we have inside our prototype is properly connected to all those tables. So I'll see you in the next lesson.